Hey, it's Andrew Downs. I'm proud to support Three Beards Media, and I would love to work with you. If you need merchandise for your company, organization, band, softball team, whatever, I can help. From name brand apparel to promotional items, large orders or small, online stores, and more, I can help your brand stand out. AKC Marketing is local, based in Johnston, and we are an employee-owned business, so our costs are low and our turnaround times are fast. But most importantly, we give you personal service to make sure you get exactly what you're looking for. Email me at andrew@akcmarketing.com or find me on social media and let's make some cool stuff together. Now sit back and enjoy this Three Beards Media podcast.
All right, everyone, welcome in on a special edition of Hawks Eye View. I'm Andrew Barber, and tonight we don't have Drew Shipley, but we have the next best thing. We have Iowa Hoops Dave joining us tonight. Some of you might know him from following him on Twitter. We're going to talk a little men's basketball with you tonight, but I wanted to have him on the show. Glad to have him on for the first time. Should have grabbed him last season so that he could have set both Drew and I straight. I was way too optimistic about Iowa basketball last season, and Drew was way too pessimistic. So we'll get it right this year because we have an expert. So, but thanks for joining, Dave. Thanks for joining. I appreciate you. Can you just tell everyone a little bit about yourself and who you are?
Yeah, the first and foremost thing is definitely the plug, right? I mean, it's on the screen at Iowa Hoops Dave. You can follow me on Twitter/X. What can you say? I've been a fan of the program for such a long time, going to Carver as a kid, at the start of the Fran era is such a, core memory for myself. And, it really just sprung from there, honestly. I'm a huge, fan of basketball in general now. That's, not limited to NBA or grassroots, anything like that. And I'm so excited for the Hawks this year. And, just this time of the year in general, we got NBA starting next week, these college charity games, we got Rutgers on in the background. We were talking about that before. Just gotta love this time of the year when it overlaps with like MLB and the NFL. Obviously, we've got cinema college football too. I mean, what's there not to love, Andrew? And I should have said, super excited. We've had this in the works for a while, without a doubt.
Yeah, this is my favorite time of the year where everything's overlapping and it's just sports every night of the week. There's something every night. Are you how long have you been a season ticket holder? I know you just might have just started being a season ticket holder, but you had season tickets while you were a student too, right?
Yeah.
So you've been going to every home game, most every home game for the better part of how many years now?
Yeah. The first year as a student, it was COVID. So unfortunately I couldn't. My friends and I still talk about that, like the things we would have done just to like see like one, game in person from that 2020-21 team at Carver, like in a limited crowd. But I guess I went to the Grand Canyon game in the tournament that year, so I did get to see him eventually. But so it would have been the better part of two full seasons after that, and then 2 seasons as a big boy holder now for sure, and I'm excited with that without a doubt. I'm actually trying to get back into the organized game hands-on, so I might not quite be able to make it to everyone in person this year, but I'm excited. It's going to be a super fun time for me.
All right. DJV says, let's freaking go, Dave. Go Hawks.
Awesome. We got a real one listening.
A lot of people excited. Deej, thanks for listening. I know you've listened to the show before. Appreciate you, man. So you have a pretty good feeling of like the pulse of the program, I would say, being there, being in the atmosphere. What would you say kind of the sense is for like this year? Is it kind of like an optimistic outlook, or what's kind of your feel for the program, kind of where it is and where it's going right now?
Yeah, I mean, for immediate future, it was funny because I was, assuming you're going to ask something along those lines for sure. In terms of, the main two teams, which is in my life as a fan, which is Iowa and the Milwaukee Bucks. It's kind of a similar theme, in the sense that both teams feel like they're kind of flying under the radar for what all the internal word that you hear about, that kind of vibe and confidence level is for them. Maybe they're not getting that love in the media, but there's a lot of just optimism within that. This is going to be in Iowa's case a more successful year than last year. It sounds like there's a lot of confidence to get back to the tournament. I think personally, just even without having seen them play quite yet, it's a better constructed roster on paper to have success overall. And yeah, I mean, just generally in terms of the program itself, it's kind of subjective, because obviously how much longer Fran is going to be at Iowa kind of gets brought up, in my opinion, which can really take that topic to a magnitude of different directions. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Obviously, 2025 recruiting, I don't think they've had as much success as they would have liked to, but I think that's eventually going to change here in the near future. And I mean, it's going to be interesting to see, but ultimately I think Iowa has a good core here set for the next few seasons in theory to, if nothing else, send them out on a good note for sure.
Yeah. I think the how long is Fran going to be at Iowa is a huge part of the conversation when you're talking about like the future of the program, but we'll keep it kind of more focused on just this year. You talked about like the roster and you like how it's constructed, and I do too. I think there's a lot of options. I mean, it feels like France does every year. He has 13 guys. I don't know if we are going to play a 13-man rotation. I don't think that's a feasible.
I'd be pretty surprised for sure. Yeah, but I love the confidence that he instills with quotes like that, without a doubt.
Yeah, we talked about it a little bit earlier today. I think there's 3 starting spots that are kind of locked up. Peyton Sandfort, which, by the way, I don't think we're talking enough about how big it was for him to come back when he could have gone on a 2-way deal to the NBA and enjoyed that life and made some money. I don't think we're talking about how big that is. So Peyton Sandfort, Owen Freeman, and Josh Dix, I think, locked down 3 of the 5 starting spots. And then I think there's a little bit of ambiguity with the power forward, if you want to call it that, or the 4 spot and the point guard spot. And which one do you want to start with? Dealer's choice, power forward or?
I feel like I'm generally a lot higher on Drew Thelwell. I have been ever since he committed here in the spring than maybe the average fan. And I think he's really got a story to tell, even if he's going to be here one season. So I'll be happy to start on that. And obviously, who doesn't love to talk Brock Harding, right, Andrew?
Yeah, I do. I love Brock Harding's game. Like, he is, ever since I saw his highlight tape when he committed, like, he is just electric, like a lightning rod.
Got some white chocolate in him, who doesn't love that?
Yeah, and I'm also just a sucker for like smooth lefties. I like guys that play lefty because I'm left-handed myself, which is not something that. So maybe I just have a little bit of a bias there. Like, I like seeing someone else out on the court. I never played high-level basketball myself, so I don't really know what it's like to play. Definitely not at the Division I level. I played until my freshman year of high school, but I would go lefty, and I played for fun after that. I play for fun every once in a while.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I still, unfortunately, like, since I left undergrad, I haven't been able to get near as many like pickup runs as I'd love to, but I love, just being able to get up and down whenever. But I guess someone told me the other week I'm like built like a golfer since the last time I saw him. I don't even play golf, but I guess that means I've been seeing results in the gym one way or another.
There you go. You're built like a Tiger Woods.
Man, that's flattering me way too much. We gotta keep it on point guard talk, man.
Yeah, we do. So, I think it's a good problem to have because I think you have two guys that you feel confident in. Um, my question with Brock Harding, like if he's going to start, is like yeah, he's got a little bit of that white chocolate in him. He likes to try the flashy stuff, but can he like rein that in when he needs to? That's kind of my question with him. Um, the assist to turnover type deal. We saw some of the turnovers last year. I was mostly fine with Brock Harding's turnovers last year because I think they were the result of him being aggressive. I don't think he's a passive player. I think he's the kind of aggressive player that you need out there.
Yeah, no, definitely. I'm looking at the numbers right now. I mean, per 40 minutes, obviously, he was kind of when you're looking at his numbers from last year, it's a bit skewed in a sense that, he never really felt like he necessarily had like a lockdown spot in the rotation. It was, kind of matchup oriented more than anything. I'd like to think, obviously experience, I'm sure kind of plays into that, but per 40 minutes, he actually had 9.7 assists and 2.8 turnovers per game. Obviously, it's only, on the actual per game, 2.5 to 0.8. But overall, when he was out there, I mean, he was probing and, honestly, like I truly believe he brought an element, like I feel like you were getting at there, to last season's team that, I mean, no one else truly had, even if, obviously he maybe wasn't as fine tuned to be, an every game guy. But I love what, we're working with and the internal, talk around him. I feel like we hear about him more than honestly anyone, which I mean, is exceeding my expectations. And I mean, majority of this offseason, I really thought like that spot would have been Thelwell's to lose. But the stuff what we hear that he's, seriously challenging him, I think that just really speaks to, he always has been preaching like his hard work, like you see him shooting after every game. So I think that's going to be a great problem, like you say, for Iowa to have coming into this year.
Yeah, and another thing that I think gives him a little bit of an advantage is he has just kind of this innate connection with Owen Freeman. They played that last year of high school ball together, and Freeman's going to be a huge key for this team. Like the leap that all of these freshmen from last year make is going to be the biggest key for this Iowa team because I think you know what you're going to get out of Sanford and Dix, and to a lesser extent, like Thelwell. He's played in college for so long that I think you can reasonably expect what you're going to get out of those players.
Absolutely.
But it's the leap that Freeman and Harding and Bailey and Price Sanford, like that they make, which I went on record last year saying I think this is probably Fran's best class that he's ever had in his whole time.
It definitely has a great chance to be, especially if you add Traore into the mix as, you know what I mean, an extra class of 24 player.
So anyways, I think it's going to be Harding to start out the year at the point guard spot.
Ooh,
I think Thelwell's going to come off the bench.
I think just given everything that, we've heard, I don't want to I'm not very confident in the pick, but yeah, I think I honestly would say Brock as well, just, given everything that's happened. It sounds like they have their, secret scrimmage on Saturday. So hopefully, we can get some good intel eventually from that. But that, just kind of remains to be seen. But, regardless of who it ends up being, they both bring, unique elements to, the floor, Andrew. And I think that especially in Thelwell's case, he's going to definitely be a guy with emphasis on, his redeeming qualities, even if, he's not someone that lights up the stat sheet on a nightly basis. I mean, what really stood out to me, especially is, just watching him on film, he makes the right read much more often than not. He was top 100 in assist rate last year, and he stayed on the floor. He had one of the best fouls committed rate in the country while being, on a pretty solid defensive team, albeit in the OVC if you want to, use that against him. But I think it's definitely an identity that the team is going to, play to their advantage without a doubt.
Yeah. And I think there's situations too where you could see Harding and Thelwell on the court together. There's some teams that run 2-point guard lineups. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about them playing minutes together?
I mean, I love the idea of it, honestly. I think it has to be, matchup oriented with the way, teams kind of run situationally nowadays. The only problem is it feels like I was kind of working tight in the backcourt this year because you have those two, you have Josh Dix, and then at that point, it's kind of like you're almost, hoping someone like maybe Price Stanford or whoever else can, slide in and, play probably like a less involved combo guard role offensively. And, if you want to bring like the other end of the floor into talk as well, that's, valid as well along with that. So, I mean, overall, we've seen in college basketball in general that 2-point guard lineups have proven to be much more effective oftentimes than not. And, it's just going to come down to like, can those two, really effectively stay out of foul trouble? Obviously, there's the two foul jail notoriously from France. So, that could maybe come into play. But, the three of those fortunately haven't really, developed that over their careers. So I'll be interested definitely to see where they go with that.
Yeah. Let's lock down the other spot, the power forward spot. In my mind, I think there's really three guys you could play here. Traore, who I'm really excited about, coming over from Manhattan. He was didn't he make one of the all first or second teams?
Yeah, I think he was first team all freshman or whatever the official label for that was.
Okay. So I'm really excited about him. And then there's Dembele, who we've talked about previously. And then there's Cooper Cook, the true freshman, who I think is going to crack the rotation. I don't know if he's going to be starting at the power forward spot, but I think he's going to bring shooting and a lot that maybe was missing from last year.
I was going to say, yeah, another guy we've heard a lot of great stuff about, ever since he got onto campus by the sound of it. It sounded like you were maybe doubting him a little bit initially, but I think, based on what I've heard, he may have a tremendous opportunity rather to, start at the start of the year. It sounds like, given the way he's able to complement. Obviously, like, I feel like you're getting at there again, like last year's team ultimately was not able to shoot it from three that I think the way, a France team would want to be ran. And as a result, they were, settling much too often for inefficient jumpers from, a number of guys. But that's definitely the main thing that comes to mind, when it comes to the fact of, the roster just being more well constructed for that. So hopefully, we can get more efficient looks on a consistent basis there. But each one, like you say, is definitely going to bring, their own qualities, and it's going to be interesting to see how that kind of develops throughout the year for sure.
Yeah, again, as we go through each game a little bit later, like against a team like Indiana, maybe you start Dembele because they're so big, heavy. Or a team like Purdue, they're very big, heavy. Maybe that's a spot where like whoever's been starting gets pulled for Dembele. Like you said, it's going to be very matchup driven maybe for those four spots. But
sure.
if you had to pick today, who's it going to be?
Yeah, I think I would stand by what I said. I think I would pick Cooper Koch, sort of similarly to like the point I made about Thelwell when we were talking about the point guard spot. I think majority of this offseason, I would have guessed Traore, just without, having, seen any reports of what's going on, since practices would have began. But ultimately, it sounds like he may be having a bit of a transition, but nonetheless, he will be playing every game, I expect, and I think he has a very real opportunity to start between them. But I think right now I honestly might want to guess Cooper, but Traore is going to be a close second there.
Okay, all right, yeah, that's probably how I would have it too, because I think you need to reserve Dembele for backing up Freeman. I agree.
I think he's better suited to play like at the 5 defensively, especially. It felt like at times for me personally last year, the offense would maybe like lose a bit of its, just synergy when he was on the floor. But I think that's something that they would have really focused on a ton this offseason for sure. But he was, I felt like staying on the floor was maybe an issue at times, but he was definitely one of the better defensive bright spots of last year, I think.
Yeah, I think so too. So hopefully Owen Freeman can reduce his foul rate. You talked about foul rate with Drew Thelwell, but I think that's the next step in Owen Freeman's development. What else would you like to see from Owen Freeman or any one of the freshmen, or who do you think, I guess, is going to be most improved?
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I guess to keep it like direct, obviously staying on the floor is a big thing for Owen. I was looking back at his numbers last year. Let me just pull it up again to kind of give myself a refresher. Ultimately, like he had the season that he did, and really, and albeit, it's a bit skewed again because he didn't start at the beginning of the year despite playing every game, but he was only at 23 minutes a game last season, and still put up a really nice 10 and close to 7 on average. It's like, if he would have been out there on average 30 minutes a game, I mean, what's stopping him, especially into this year when you assume some progression and fine tuning? What's stopping him from averaging like 15 and 8? And I mean, at that point, let alone all conference or all American type of discussion. And I mean, he definitely has an NBA stock at this point, for the draft geeks out there. So that's something to monitor as well. And I think it's more real than some people may realize. And I think, just being able for him, it goes back to not biting on stuff as much, just being able to, and having like Traore, especially next to him defensively, I think is going to be huge for finishing possessions, because it felt like that was an issue that would have, obviously led to more fouls. So ultimately, I think he's in a spot to, just with the experience, really, I mean, bolster this team in a complementary fashion.
Yeah, I would agree. So I think my most improved is going to be Harding, because I feel like while Owen Freeman's going to improve, I think Harding's going to make the biggest leap from year 1 to year 2.
Sure. Yeah.
I just think locking down, if he does ultimately lock down that starting point guard spot, and it's a thing where it becomes very clear and evident as to why he's the starting point guard over a grad transfer who is way more experienced, who's been a part of NCAA tournament teams, who's won a lot of games. I think that'd be impressive to me, and I don't think Fran would do that lightly. So,
no, exactly. Yeah. And I was going to say, I guess if it was just, in terms of like their net improvement, yeah, I think I would pick either Brock, or I think Price is really flying under the radar as well, just kind of based on what we've heard. It looked like I want to say looked like he put on a good amount of weight in some of the photos we've seen. I'm not sure. I don't have the weight in front of me, from last year to this year, but I think it's, very possible he has the better part of 10 pounds on him there. And kind of like we were talking about a minute ago with the guard stuff, I think there's a chance he may be asked to, defend the off guards defensively this year. So he's definitely going to have to, really worked on, his lateral movement and stuff like that to be able to hold his zone out there. But I'm optimistic for it, that regardless, that he can be a net positive.
Yeah. Like you said, I think floor spacing is going to be a lot better this year. I think the defense and rebounding. Do you have hope for defensive and rebounding improvement? Because I think that was a weakness of the team, and a very obvious weakness of the team.
Sure. Yeah.
What's your hope for improvement?
Yeah, you have to touch on this. Well, I think, albeit, again, like, well, guard play is fresh in my mind, I think, and albeit, like I say, it's not the highest standard for what we've had in recent times there, but between what comes to mind for me is a lineup of Thelwell, Dix, and Seydou Traore. You can plug the other two in, whoever. I think that really has the opportunity to be one of Iowa's better point of attack defenses that, we've seen under Fran in some time, at the minimum since, I want to say, at the minimum since 2022, when you have had both Murrays who could switch out there. But, Thelwell really proved to be able to, be a guy, watching him, that could hold his own on the perimeter defensively. I think JD is pretty underrated in that area as well. And Seydou's shown that, he can be pretty versatile, on top of Owen being able to stay on the floor. That's just the thing in general with him. Even if Traore has a bit of an offensive transition at Iowa, I think just being the athlete that he is, defensive rebounding, and just being able to guard in general is going to be so contagious there. And even with the offensive transition, I think with the way Fran likes to, run offense for guys like him, he can get a lot of points just off of being a cutter or a lob threat in the offense.
Yeah. You said point of attack defense. Can you define what you mean by that. I think I know what you mean by that, but I just want
Sure.
our audience to understand what point of attack means.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. So I mean, it would just essentially be well, in Thelwell's case, especially there, like guards who are able to defend the primary ball handler, right? So typically it's gonna be like the point guard and be able to like defend pick and rolls effectively. Along with that, being able to not get blown by is probably a simple way to kind of put it on there. So just from any, obviously each team is going to be different from the way they look to score. And, because especially in college basketball, a lot of teams are more, set oriented and they're running plays rather than just motion. But being able to, like I say, just stay in front of your guy on a consistent basis and bring some physicality there. Because I feel like we've kind of lacked that at times. Like, Tony was obviously good as an individual, but with those three in my mind, that has a chance to, really be an overall improvement in that category for Iowa.
Yeah, that's how I feel too. We have multiple people who play. There's one guy we didn't talk about. It sounds like he's going to redshirt, but I'm excited about him long term. Chris Tadjo. I'm excited about what he brings to the program long term, but it sounds like he may not be a part of the rotation. We might get to see him in some of these early bye games. We might get to see him play some second half minutes in some of these bye games.
Yeah,
I'm
excited for. Or go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah, he's going to do some incredible stuff, throw down some incredible dunk in a bye game this year.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I can't wait for let's see, a week from tomorrow is the Division II exhibition against Minnesota Duluth. So hopefully we can see him get some brief run in that, if nothing else. But yeah, sounds like, he's going to be an interesting project for the program at this point. Really, it's kind of just hard in general to find a ton about him, having played at, the NBA academies, because, while the game film is out there, their story just, is kind of like is what it is in terms of, him being all over the planet for basketball. So, it's an interesting, kind of phenomenon, but he's a great athlete, no doubt. I think probably just the transition to the college game, by the sound of, the stuff we've heard, has maybe been, the gist of that. But yeah, no doubt I'm excited for, his upside. And I mean, how could you not love a guy like that?
Right. Yeah. I think he's going to put it together and be a great player, great wing player for Iowa.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think, and he's a lot bigger than I thought too. I think he could potentially like play the 5 defensively in small ball lineups. Yeah, so I guess how he fills out physically is going to be a big part too there. But I guess if nothing else, in a redshirt year, if that's what ends up happening, like we're kind of assuming maybe at this point, he won't have as much weight work room to do it. Just kind of fine tuning his game offensively and just getting a feel for it.
Yeah. We talked about the starting lineup. I want your thoughts on, I think it's more important who closes the game, honestly. Like, we think so much about who starts it, but who closes it? What's your closing lineup for Iowa?
Oh man. Well, it's gotta be matchup oriented again. I know I don't want to cheat, but man, that's such a good one. I think in an ideal world, I guess, if you want the most well-rounded one, like, in terms of a lineup that can, have a combination of guys who can create a look offensively, but also be able to run down on the other end in case things go bad and get a stop. I want to say I'm going to cheat it a bit. I think Brock and Thelwell can truly be interchangeable just kind of at this point in time. And then JD at the 2, Peyton Sandfort. I'm going to say Traore for right now because of being able to finish possessions, and then Owen at the 5.
That would be my vote too. Yeah, I'll let you cheat on the point guard spot because I do think that those guys I trust both of those guys completely with the game on the line. So I think Fran does too. I think we have a really great problem there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's a lineup offensively. I mean, if you need a 3, I'm confident that they're going to be able to run a set and get an open look for Peyton, right? Or obviously you got Owen down low. JD's proven he can get to his spots. If you need a mid-range 2 or whatever, I'm excited for him, especially. I feel like we've barely talked about him this whole time.
Yeah, he's the least talked about person, but yeah, he's just so darn consistent. And I don't think people understand that retaining him was a big part of the offseason too.
Yeah, no, for sure. He would have definitely garnered some serious attention in the portal if he would have went there, without a doubt.
Yeah. Well, there's a question before we go game by game. Who we know who our number one option is. Who's your number two option?
Yeah, I think I'll say Owen, just because of how Iowa likes to, really play a balanced offensive attack. But I truly think, like, if you told me, at the end of the season, like, Peyton's going to end up averaging like somewhere between like 17 and 20 a game, and then I could really easily see like Dix averaging like 15, and then potentially Owen, 12 or 13 slightly behind. That could be interchangeable for sure, and it's going to be, between those three, really game by game basis, they all have the opportunity to, take over and be the best player on the floor for Iowa on any given night, in my opinion. And that's what really makes this team an exciting squad.
Yeah, I think so too. I like having Dix backing up Peyton Sandfort as your wing scorer, because there were games where he was our best offensive threat, and we saw him do it. And so I'm glad to have him. But
yeah, absolutely.
Let's quickly, we don't need to dwell on too many of these games. Like, we can talk about the ones that matter more a little bit. But we're just going to go win-loss through the whole season right now for the Iowa men.
Oh, man.
I marked you down as wins for all the bye games against like the Southerns, the South Dakotas. You taking any of those teams to win in Carver?
Despite, the PTSD of Eastern Illinois from a couple of years ago now, we're gonna mark those all as dubs.
Okay. All right. So then that brings up our first non-conference game. I think there's a few non-conference games that we can point to that are up in the air. Neutral site game here in Moline, Illinois, I believe, against Washington State.
Yep.
Washington State made the tournament last year, but new coach, new roster for a large percentage. Not the same team that made the NCAA tournament. I've got this as a win. How do you feel about this matchup with Washington State?
Yeah, they're an interesting team for sure. One that I feels like we really don't know a ton about coming into it, because Isaac Jones was their leading scorer, is gone, and Miles Rice was their second leading scorer, is at Indiana now. So, and I think we all know how deep the pockets go over there. But it's going to be interesting. I believe they have one of their top third or fourth best scorers both back from last year, just off the top of my head. I think they are, just with respect to them, kind of slated to take a bit of a step back. And I know KenPom had them as roughly a 10-point win for Iowa. It's going to be an Iowa crowd for sure with Brock and Owens' homecoming game, and they're going to be ready to play. So I think I'm definitely marking this one a win.
Yeah, I think so too. Another game against the tournament team here. I believe Utah State made the tournament from the Mountain West last year. Didn't they have great Osabor?
Yeah, he's at Washington now, but he's if I've heard correctly, one of the top paid players in the country. So that's interesting to me. So we'll see him later in the year. But I get, again, like a team I don't know a ton about, but they are slated to be pretty solid going into the year. I think, again, we're seeing Iowa kind of play this to the advantage of, getting these games scheduled. It should be a mostly Iowa crowd, and they have kind of a travel advantage, I think, in Kansas City. I think this is going to be a competitive game for sure, but I think I'll take Iowa to etch it out in the end by, roughly 6 or 7 points, somewhere in that frame.
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and take Iowa here too. So that puts Iowa undefeated heading into we'll go to the Big Ten games in a second. There's Big Ten games before this next non-conference game. We'll fill those in later. Iowa State at home. We all know how good Iowa State is, or projected to be preseason top 5, number 5, actually. Bringing a lot of pieces back from that team, specifically the guards, and Momcilovic brought in some transfers to fill out that 5 spot that they feel good about. They have, Yeah, they are a loaded roster.
Yeah, for sure. They're going to be super competitive. I felt like, I mean, this is kind of like giving myself credit. I felt like I was really high on their team. Like it would have been into like January this past season when most of their big wins were at home still. But, the guard play that they had between Lipsy and Gilbert and, Curtis Jones he's back again, I believe, for them as well. Just that really goes a long way when you're trying to win in the postseason. And I mean, they easily could have, made it further than they ended up, but they're going to be super tough for sure. And I think this is going to be a great game, though. I expect Carver to be a hostile environment. I mean, like you say, it really jumps out. I'm going to make you go first on this one, though. What do you have your personal prediction?
Okay. So we all know the history of home team winning this game. I think like for the better part of a decade, home team winning. I am curious how the 5 spot is going to shake out for Iowa State, because I think that will matter in this game for them, especially defending Owen Freeman. I think that could be an advantage for Iowa if, it doesn't work out. But the TJ Otzelberger defense is probably going to do a lot to solve the Owen Freeman issue that they might have. I personally just think that I wish this game was a little bit later. I mean, it's always in December. I think this is kind of where the trend and the home team winning breaks. I'm going to have this I have this as Iowa's first loss of the season, which is a major bummer because I have this as their first loss of the year.
Okay. I won't get off topic, but that at least makes me feel good about like those Big Ten games. I think, man, I really think they have a great realistic shot to win this game, maybe compared to what, obviously, I mean, Iowa State Twitter is loud as hell. It's crazy to me, and they should be confident, but man, I really think like Iowa can etch this one out. I'm going to say like a within 5-point win, but I really think that this is a tremendous opportunity for them to really make a statement earlier in the season.
Yeah, I would like your outcome a lot more than mine. But I think, I just think the guard play maybe a little slightly bit better. I do think this will be a 40-minute game, competitive game. I just think that maybe Iowa State makes a few more plays. Let's get into the Big Ten season then. We open before we play Iowa State with a home game against Northwestern. I don't know a whole lot about Northwestern this year. I know that they lost some guys off of last year's squad.
Yeah,
I know that Nicholson's back, but I don't know how the rest of the roster looks.
Yeah, the main him and Barnhizer and Ty Berry are definitely the main ones that come to mind. I believe they have Martinelli as well, who's a winning player. I think he would have been averaging close to like 10 and 5 a game last season. I think, man, this is going to be an interesting one for sure, because I think Northwestern could, potentially make some noise, but the league is just, I mean, it's it's so bound to cannibalize itself because it's been happening for the better part of, 5 years now, and now you're adding 4 quality programs out west. I'm going to say, man, I really think like Iowa can etch this one out, but I'm actually going to say, just going off the trend of the past, and they're kind of struggling in these early season conference games, I'm going to etch this one to Northwestern, but we definitely can move on to that Michigan one quick, but obviously I'll let you go here.
Yeah. I have the Northwestern game as a win. I think we'll buck the trend here. We're all about bucking trends this year with Iowa basketball. So I went opposite of the trend on Iowa State. I'm staying opposite of the trend here with Northwestern.
Sure.
And then I'm staying opposite of the trend by picking up a road win at Michigan. We're starting 2-0 in conference.
Okay, I like it.
Customary 0-2.
I have this one as a win too. Yeah, I think Michigan has a ton of upside between Vlad Golden and Danny Wolf they're gonna have a lot of times with 2 really skilled 7-footers on the floor for the standard of what you typically see in college basketball, and Trey Donaldson, who was really tough for Auburn off the bench in the tournament game against them is there now. Dusty May, I think, is going to, definitely do an interesting job over the years here. But I think, given that they have so many newcomers, this will be a, time. Well, I was going to catch them at the right time of the year and etch out a road win again.
I think so too. I forgot a non-conference game. I forgot the Sioux Falls game against Utah. We're playing both Utah teams this year. Revenge spot for the NIT game here. I don't think they have Carlson back, and then who's that guard that just killed us? Well, they have Madsen back who shot a lot of threes.
Oh man, yeah, that was tough last year. I couldn't believe I was watching that game. But we've been really good over the years at the Pentagon. I was in talks with a good friend of mine. Not sure if he's listening to this to potentially go. I'm not sure where we're standing on that currently, but I would love to be able to see that venue in general. And it's going to be an Iowa crowd. We know that, and I think Iowa's going to get their payback in this one. And I believe, if I remember correctly, it would be their first ever win in program history against Utah. So it's going to run deep.
There we go. Let's get our first win against Utah basketball. I'm on board with that. Wisconsin game in January, I believe, on the road. Madison has been just a house of horrors. I don't think I like Wisconsin basketball much this year. I think they're going to miss the NCAA tournament. I don't think this is a good Wisconsin team. But Crowell is there. Klesmit's there. I don't know. I think I'm just marking it down as a loss just because of the historical. This is the one time I'm going with the trend.
I'm gonna say, I think I'll also edge up a close loss just because it's on the road. This is one that, oh man, I can already picture how it would feel now in real time, just because Iowa probably has a more skilled team on paper, with all due respect to them. But the Kohl Center is always going to be tough to play in, and I'm sure it's going to be a 40-minute game, like you say. But I think I'll edge this one out just kind of to level things out.
Yeah. Then it's home against Nebraska, who Rink Mast is still there. Juwan Gary, Bryce Williams. I just don't know who's going to play point guard for Aaron Eulis. Is Aaron Eulis going to play point guard for Nebraska?
I think, that's something I'm curious on. It sounds like he's going to be playing. I know that they have, Sam Hoiberg and Connor Esigian are probably going to be playing some serious minutes for them. I mean, personally for me, as solid of a job, I'm sure Fred Hoiberg is going to get just about everything he can out of this team. But on paper, especially at home, I think Iowa's going to get the job done here for sure.
Yeah. They have Gavin Griffiths too, who.
Okay, that's right.
From Rutgers.
You're right, yeah.
And then they have a true freshman, Janowski, who I know Iowa State was heavy after. He was a Wisconsin kid that they were heavy after. But like you said, I think Iowa wins this. That sets up a match with Indiana. I didn't realize that they have Miles Rice from Washington State on top of all the big guys that they have coming back. This one's in Carver. Just a bad feeling here about this one. I've got a loss left them.
It's Indiana is such an interesting team in general. I didn't feel great about putting it out, but I did pick them to win the league in the regular season. But just given kind of how things play out, I don't know how much I truly believe it, admittedly. I think I'm going to chalk this one up as a win, though. I really do. I think, overall, Omar Balu versus Owen will be a fun matchup there. And just given the history, obviously got that first loss against Woodson last year in Fran era, but I think we'll get back to the winning ways here in this one against them.
I like it. The next two games kind of go hand in hand. Road trip to California for Iowa men's basketball, first at USC, at UCLA. I'm going to let you go first here because I don't know enough about either one of these teams.
Yeah, they are interesting for sure. The guy that definitely is passed around a ton when you talk about USC right now is St. Thomas. That's his name, St. Thomas from Northern Colorado. And it sounded like he really popped off in their exhibition game. It was either 1 or 2 days ago. They do have Musselman, which I think is not talked about enough. He definitely has a chance to build something pretty great there. They're going to have an interesting team overall. Then I know they have Desmond Claude back as well, who is a Xavier. Well, not back. He's a transfer from Xavier. It's an interesting one. I think ultimately, though, this out west trip is going to be tough for a lot of Big Ten teams. Well, the traditional Big Ten teams, I should say. I think I'll etch up a close loss in this one, and it'll probably be a bit frustrating in real time, but it'll be an interesting matchup.
Yeah, I was kind of feeling the same way. I knew that the Must Bus was getting started with all the transfers. Transfers that Iowa was in on when you're talking about St. Thomas and go in. I don't think we got St. Thomas to visit, but we were trying really hard.
Yeah, they were. I think there was like maybe contact at some point.
Yeah, these are names I recognize from Iowa chasing in the portal. So, which credit to Fran for trying to fill the roster with some portal guys. But yeah, this is all portal guys here for year one of the Must Bus. I've got a loss too. UCLA, Mick Cronin's still here. They bring a couple of guys back. They bring a couple of guys in as well that are going to make an impact for them, I believe. This is just a tough place to play, man. UCLA is just a hard place to play.
Yeah,
I don't think Iowa's first visit here is going to go particularly well.
Yeah, I think UCLA is going to be as tough as any team in the conference. I was really tempted to honestly pick them to win it in my prediction again. But I think just with the new element to it for them, I think it'll end up holding back a little bit. But yeah, between Eric Daly from Oklahoma State and then William Kyle, who if you watch some Summit League definitely not for money-fueled purposes. He is a very nice player, and I think they're going to complement each other super well. And then they got the guy from Oregon State as well. His name's Tyler. I'll butcher his last name, but they have a chance to be really tough. And this might be, let alone on the road, to catch them at a tough time when they're really hitting their stride. Right.
And yeah, William Kyle. All I need to know is that Otzelberger wanted him really badly.
Yeah, absolutely. That would have been a crazy squad if they would have had him.
Yeah. Then we get a couple of back-to-back home games against Minnesota and Penn State. I think Minnesota could be a cellar dweller. I know you've got them down in last on your Big Ten rankings. I saw. I got to win. I got to win here against Minnesota and Penn State.
Yeah, I would agree. To speak on Minnesota, I actually, really respect the job that Ben Johnson's tried to do there. But I mean, yeah, just on paper, it's going to be really tough for them, unfortunately, this year, I think.
Yeah. So you got wins against Minnesota and Penn State?
Yeah, correct.
Okay. Then it's a road game against Ohio State. I don't know what to make of Ohio State. New coach now, moving out of the Chris Holtmann era.
Yeah.
What do you make of Ohio State this year?
Yeah, I think the one guy that really pops out, of course, is going to be Bruce Thornton, who's, one of the better guards for sure in the conference, without a doubt. And they brought in Michi Johnson from South Carolina, who I think is going to have a nice impact for them. And I think in terms of, just to give an idea of what to expect from them moving forward, it sounds like, Jake Diebler is really trying to take a modern approach, especially like with analytics playing into, their type of game plan at Ohio State. And I mean, he really like got them to salvage something out of last season when it looks like, things were really, really heading off the rails, firing Holtmann mid-season. So I think I'm going to personally chalk this one up as a loss of it being on the road. But I mean, if it was at home, this is definitely one I'd have Iowa etching out. But I think Ohio State, they could definitely beat just about anyone on a given night. But it'll be interesting to see how their season plays out.
Yeah, I have this as a loss as well. They brought in Bradshaw from Kentucky too.
Oh yeah, okay. I knew I was missing someone in that.
Yeah, and Michi Johnson actually brought him back because he started at Ohio State.
Oh, that's right. I knew because I
Yeah,
knew, yeah, he went to South Carolina from somewhere else. I was I was like,
I'm back.
this name seems pretty familiar, you know?
Brought him back. So then it's a home game with Purdue right after that to kick off our February for
Yeah,
Iowa.
man.
Uh, with a home game against Purdue. No more Zach Edey, but they still have Braden Smith and Lawyer, who will be running that team. Mason Gillis left as well, but Trey Kaufman-Renn, who backed up Edey and did a pretty good job, who I think is going to take a huge leap forward. This is a good team. This is a good Purdue team. Still,
Definitely.
may not be the team that was as dominant as last year, but this is a good team.
Yeah, for sure. And I think like for Purdue, it's really gonna come down to who can really be stable at the 5 for them. I know Daniel Jacobson's those 7 threes really done some good work on the FIBA side of things throughout the years, and I think him and Daniel Berg are definitely the two main, I would assume, to contend for that job. I'm gonna go a bit against the trend though here. As much as I respect Painter coaching jobs at home, I think Iowa can etch this one out ultimately. And fortunately, I believe it's the only game against Purdue this year. Yeah, so that would definitely be huge for the program to get a 1-0 against them.
It is, and I think we're going to get a 1-0 against Purdue as well. I think they're not. They do have a lot of big bodies, like you mentioned, Jacobson and then Will Berg. I think they're going to be able to throw a lot of 7-footers. There's just not a lot of proven 7-footers right now. I do like Kaufman-Renn. I do like the backcourt, but I don't think it's the same scary Purdue team as years past. So then Wisconsin comes to Iowa City. Revenge spot for me here. We lose on the road. I think Iowa's going to get the win at home.
Yeah, as Pat would say, I think this will be a belt to ass bounce back against them, and hopefully get some really good momentum going if you're coming off to a really nice 2-0 stretch here.
Yeah. Yep, that's a nice 2-0 stretch, and we need it before the 2-game stretch here at Rutgers, at Maryland. Rutgers, Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper, right? We're starting the Ace Bailey, Dylan Harper season. So I think Rutgers season could go a lot of ways, but they're starting from a very talented place.
Absolutely.
They're also tough at home.
Yeah, that's the main thing for me here. I think Jeremiah Williams definitely should not go unnoticed as well with the element he'll be able to bring as another guard, especially next to the role that obviously Dylan's going to be demanding the ball a ton, I'm sure. But I'm going to go with a close loss here. I think, like you say, Rutgers could really pan out a ton of ways this season, but there's no doubt that they're talented, and I'm sure this is going to be a tough environment. So ultimately, I think I'll chalk this one up a loss just to average it out. But if you want to get ahead, to Maryland sooner than later, I'd be happy to discuss that.
Yeah, I'm taking a loss here as well. Maryland, I don't know enough about this Maryland team. I know it's been a little bit of a tough place to play. Julian Reese is back. They have Geronimo back. They have Harris Smith, Long back. They're missing maybe a true point guard. I don't know who's going to play true point guard.
They got Jacoby Gillespie from Belmont, who can really shoot the hell out of it. Admittedly, that's not a guy I've seen, to play as much as I would have, liked to. So I'll definitely have to get more familiar with this team. I think Iowa etches one out here, though. I think overall, especially with how last year's Maryland game went, that's one that just really sticks out in my mind as one that they should have, ultimately pulled out that they didn't. So yeah, hopefully we can get a nice bounce back here, and I'm sure this would have a very strong chance of being a quad one on the road.
Yep, there we go. There's a good quad one win here for Iowa. Yeah, I like Iowa to pull this one out. Like you mentioned, Gillespie is a good player. No Jameer Young, though. I think that might play a role in this one. So, home games against Oregon and Washington back-to-back here. how we feeling about these two former Pac-12 schools?
Yeah, Oregon's gonna have they're gonna have a really nice duo between Jackson Selshad and then TJ Bamba as well, who's come from Villanova last season. I want to say he was at Wazoo before that. So they're gonna be interesting. I've always, as much as the 2021 tournament game really stings, Oregon's a program and Dana Altman that I've always had a lot of respect for, but ultimately, I think the Pacific travel here is definitely going to play to Iowa's advantage, and I think they'll etch out a close win, especially with it being a midweek one. Hopefully, we can have a nice, just a nice. Well, whether it's a good Carver crowd ultimately, or the sicko half full ones, and everyone there is at least loud. I'll take that for what it is. I think each, not to get off topic, I think each of those can definitely provide like a really unique challenge for the opponents.
Yeah, I think so too. I'm going to take Iowa as well. I think a victory over Dana Altman would be sweet. I also have a lot of Oregon fans that I know for some reason. I'd
That's
love
funny.
to be able to rub.
That's
this
funny
in.
you say that. Yeah, because one of my better friends from undergrad is an Oregon and Iowa fan, so I think he'll definitely be excited for this one. But yeah, I think we're going to get a nice win here.
And I feel the same way about a win over Washington. I think Great Osabor is an awesome player. I just don't know about the rest of their roster, really. Maybe it's just my own ignorance of the Washington roster here, but I'm feeling an Iowa win over Washington.
Yeah, I agree here. Especially knowing that they've got Braden Bach from Nebraska, like he's gonna be playing a pretty significant role for them, as I understand. So I think Owen is gonna take that lunch money, and we'll etch out one here pretty comfortably.
Got it. Illinois, completely different team. No Terrence Shannon. Ty Rogers still around. Yeah, this is a completely different roster. I think. My gosh, why am I blanking on their coach's name? Brad Underwood.
Oh, Underwood.
Yeah, Underwood has really embraced the transfer portal here. I've seen a wide range of predictions for Illinois.
Yeah,
but I have this as a loss on the road. I think Illinois is a tough place to play. How do
Yeah.
you feel about Illinois?
Man, yeah, this is one I really wish like we were catching them earlier in the year personally, because then I think even on the road Iowa would have a really nice shot, because what the main thing that really comes into mind if you want to get a quick hitter about Illinois is how quick is their foreign guys of Tomislav Ivicic, who's going to probably be starting at center for them from Croatia. And I think he's at least 20 years old, if I remember correctly. So maybe not necessarily a real freshman. And then, I don't want to mispronounce his last name, but Kasparas from he's of Lithuanian descent and played at Barcelona. So a very high level club in Europe. And but it's going to be an interesting transition because, I mean, college basketball games are, kind of just played in a different sense. Ultimately, I will chalk this one up as a loss as well, but I think it'll be a competitive game. And needless to say, like I was kind of getting at, Illinois is a team that I'm pretty fascinated by, and I'm definitely going to try and get as much of a read on early season.
Got it. We play a road game at Northwestern. I said Northwestern can make some noise. I don't see it. I think this is a win for Iowa.
I think, I'm going to go similar to last year. I think we get a late season win against them on the road. I'm sure it's going to be a good environment, especially on, we got so many Friday games now with this new Big Ten schedule. But I think this will be a good game that Iowa can ultimately get a great win in heading into March.
Yep, I would agree. Then a home game against Michigan State, the only time we play them in the regular season. I know that they brought in some guys. They brought some guys back. Akins is back. Holloman's back. Xavier Booker, Cohen Carr. Bringing in Frankie Fiddler. I think that's maybe their big addition of the offseason.
Yeah.
I got this as a win. I think Iowa gets up for games against Michigan State and Carver.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what would that be? This would make it, if they win, it would be 6 or 7 against Michigan State. Like that. That even going back to like the Dr. Tom era, that has to be almost like an unprecedented stretch against them program wise. But yeah, I think MSU could, definitely make a lot of noise. That's a program I respect a ton personally. I got my friend Kev, who's one of my favorite college basketball mutuals, is a fan of theirs. I think their season ultimately comes down to how seamless can Jeremy Fears kind of slot into a starting point guard role after having that really scary incident that ended his season last year. And Xavier Booker has a ton of upside, but it feels like I don't know what we can necessarily expect going into things. But yeah, just wanted to get my geek off there. I think Iowa etches out a win here at home on senior night.
Cool. Yep, I agree. Send Peyton Sanford out with a win.
Yeah, absolutely.
Road game at Nebraska to finish the season. I got this as another win spot. Like you mentioned, they got Breidenbach playing a huge role. Washington has Breidenbach, but we don't know the point guard. We don't know the point guard spot for Nebraska, maybe.
Yeah, man, this one scares me because on the road, Nebraska's been a house of horrors for sure. I think ultimately, I think Iowa's going to etch this one out, but it might be an ugly game for sure. But this is the type of game where it's like, just get out of here with a win, and you take that absolutely every day of the week.
All right, that does it. We didn't plan this, but we are essentially.
Did you chalk up like what we had our final record as?
Yeah, I'm chalking it up right now. I believe I have. Let's see. I have 6, 7, 8, an 8-loss team. Would that be 22-8 then?
Yes, I believe so. At least roughly.
Yeah, we play 31. I have us 23-8.
Okay.
I believe you have.
It's probably almost the exact same.
Yeah, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 24-7 for you.
Man, oh gosh.
Going game by game, 24-7.
For the record, this is probably not gonna go out that way, just with how the Big Ten is gonna really level out. But man, yeah, you gotta feel good. I think that just goes to show how good you're gonna feel on a game by game basis with this team, really.
Yeah, I think that's us factoring in that Iowa's gonna take care of business where they're supposed to. We know that, every year things happen and they drop a game that they're not supposed to. Every college basketball team does it.
Yeah, I was gonna say, not exclusive.
It's just hard to pick out where those spots are for me preseason, and maybe that'll reveal itself in time. But that has them solidly in. Would you define that as a success for the year?
For the regular season, or just getting in? A lot more so yes than no. It feels like you definitely want to get there. And especially, I guess context is going to matter, with the matchup, right? And obviously if everyone's, what we're looking up, like health-wise, all that good stuff. I guess, if it was just generally like getting to the tournament and losing, I think that's a, good spot overall, just, coming off a, season where you've missed the tournament to keep momentum going because, you're slated to have a lot of your key contributors back. But ultimately, I'll say not quite satisfied at that point.
Yeah, I would say not quite satisfied just getting in. I would obviously, like every other Iowa fan, I would love to get to the Sweet 16, but that's so matchup dependent. Like, where would Iowa be seated if it works out the way we think it's going to? And how many of those are quad one wins? And are there any bad losses? And yeah, if you run into a team that's just their strengths match your weaknesses, then you're just kind of done.
Yeah, no, for sure. And yeah, it's it's unforgiving, it's tough, it's a, silly one and done tournament, but that's why we all love it. And yeah, I
Right.
mean, overall, game by game, I mean, I think, with the internal, well, with everyone back, especially given the landscape of how teams play out, I think that, really makes you confident in a ton of these matchups, like we say. But yeah, just game by game, it's like, can you bring it, on that night?
Yeah. So ultimately, I think the goal is just get in, see what happens. I'm excited. I think this is going to be a great season. I'll try to make it up to a few games, and maybe we can have a real life hang pre
Oh man.
post game. That would be cool.
Well, yeah, I'll have to see. I mean, yeah, I don't know, man. I really was hoping they were gonna do like the doubleheader of men's and women's basketball in the Wells Fargo Arena again this year. But I felt like coming out of last year's, they were really talking about making that a yearly thing. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I visit Des Moines fairly often as well. I mean, my DMs are always open, Andrew.
I know. You're one of the you're one of the most knowledgeable guys, but you're also one of the nicest guys out there.
Man.
So
yeah, I appreciate that. Oh, end of the day, yeah, just trying to have fun with it more than anything.
there you go. And you and I can connect on Iowa, but we can also connect on. I love the Bucks too. That's my team, probably before Keegan joined the Sacramento Kings.
Sure, awesome.
And I'm a Packers fan, so we connect on a lot of fronts here, man. So
yes, sir. Yeah, can't wait. Sunday, I'm anxious, but that's going to be an awesome game.
Dude, it's going to be so good. Love Stroud is one of the new quarterback matchups. It's like the old,
Absolutely,
like Manning Brady. It's like the new Manning Brady.
No, for sure. And yeah, the Lambeau whiteout, I'm interested to see how that goes. I mean, I love the jerseys. So yeah, hopefully it's a great atmosphere. And I don't know if that's a gold package game this year. They always have like an AFC game in that mix. So I pray it's not, but we'll see.
Yeah, we'll see. Well, thank you so much. I don't know if you want to stay on and talk a little football with me, but we got to take a break here, hear from some of our sponsors. And you gonna stay on with me?
I was gonna say, unfortunately, I got some stuff I got to take care of. If it was all like next week, I probably would. But yeah, before we go, yeah, football 10-2 is on the table, man. I think they got a real shot, and we're definitely winning on Saturday if force a couple turnovers, especially.
Cool. Yeah, I agree with that. But I'll come back and talk a little football with all of you. Dave, thanks for – well, that's not an actual name, but I'm going to call you Dave anyways. But thank you so much for your time. We'll have to have you back on periodically so we can do a little check-in and see how you're feeling from time to time with the Iowa basketball season. So
no doubt.
Appreciate you doing this on short notice, man. Love it.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Go give him a follow. We appreciate him very, very much on this show. So
awesome. Have a good one, Andrew. Thanks again.
Thank you all. Have a good night, and we will take a break.
Making great tasting bourbon requires the perfect combination of ingredients, conditions, and time. The longer it rests, the better it tastes. Revelton Distillery's new single barrel bourbon is made from 80% corn, sourced 100% from Iowa farmers. And unlike mass-produced bourbons, each barrel of Revelton's single barrel bourbon is unique, proofed on when it tastes best. As they like to say, it'll be ready when it's ready. And to ensure the highest standards of quality and flavor, owners Rob and Christy Taylor oversee the production and bottling. Every single barrel. Iowa born, Iowa aged, Iowa bottled. Try the new single barrel bourbon from Iowa's own Revelton Distillery. ReveltonDistillery.com. Whether you're buying, selling, or refinancing your home, or if it's simply time to renovate the one you're already living in, you need an experienced mortgage professional to help you analyze your financing options and to make sure the closing goes smoothly. And that's exactly what you get when you call Kyle Lehman at Wintrust Mortgage. Kyle's experience and expertise, coupled with Wintrust's rates and programs, ensures you'll get the mortgage that's right for you. You may even qualify for down payment assistance. Before you reach out to a realtor, Call Kyle and get pre-qualified, empowering you to start shopping for the home of your dreams. Call Kyle at 515-473-0546. Kyle Lehman Wintrust Mortgage, 515-473-0546. In 2023, a crack Green Beret named Dan Douglas retired his military command and promptly escaped to a full-time career in real estate. Today, this man is wanted by home buyers and sellers who want to survive the process without spending a fortune. If you have a home to sell or want to buy one, maybe you can hire Dan Douglas at Green Beret Realty. You can find him at greenberetrealty.com. greenberetrealty.com.
All right. Welcome back into Hawk's Eye View. Andrew Barber here, going to take you the rest of the way with the show. Thanks to Iowa Hoops Day for coming on and talking a little bit of men's basketball. There was a little bit of women's basketball news that we needed to mention. Huge commit from four-star center 6'5" Layla Hayes from Alaska. Big-time get in the class of 2025 for Jan Jensen and the Iowa women's program. And that is one step closer to the women's basketball team becoming a national brand. They're really widening their reach when it comes to these recruits. They had McKenna Lewitzko, who is a top 10 recruit in the class of 2026, on campus as well this weekend. They are really shooting for the stars when it comes to the recruiting. They're trying to take advantage of the moment and take advantage of every opportunity that Caitlin Clark gave them. So we are going to see that women's basketball brand really heating up, and we will do a preview next week with Drew back of the women's basketball season. So women's basketball fans, don't fret. We are doing that next week before the Northwestern game. But wanted to talk a little bit about the Washington game and look a little bit ahead to the Michigan State game as well. The Washington game. Wow. I went on this podcast last week and I said that Iowa will lose 23-14. Man, am I ever glad to be wrong. I was just flat out wrong about that. And it was a good feeling. I was in the stands. I was a little bit nervous for maybe the first quarter and a half or so, but Iowa just completely took over that game. The first touchdown drive for Iowa, man, that was a thing of absolute beauty for Tim Lester. And if that's a preview of the kind of offense that we're going to get on a more consistent basis, and specifically the play calling that we're going to get on a more consistent basis, I'm all the way in on the Tim Lester era as the offensive coordinator for Iowa. I think that is it wasn't flashy. It wasn't throwing the ball through the air the whole time. It was misdirection on runs and making the most out of the run game, which I loved. And the passing game had a nice day too. Cade McNamara threw 2 passing touchdowns. One of those to Caleb Johnson, one of his 3 touchdowns on the day. And another one late in the game to Dayton Howard, the first of his career, the first of the season, and his first penalty as well. But Dayton Howard getting some play late and catching a big pass and taking it 37 yards to the house to put Iowa 40-10. That is the kind of thing that you love. And Iowa offensively is just blowing the last 2 years out of the water. There's no sense in even talking about last year at this point because it's so different in the turnaround. Offensively, I mean, we see the numbers that Caleb Johnson is putting up. We see the numbers that the offense is scoring, the scoring average going up, and that is primarily because of the improvement of the offense. They're averaging 29.2 points per game through 6 games. You know, they were averaging 30 points a game for those first 3 games, and you could chalk some of that up to the level of competition, but you can't do that anymore. This is real. This is the improvement is real. It matters. It feels good to be 2-1 after that. And the defense was so solid, specifically the defensive line. Aaron Graves in there having himself a heck of a day. Mad Max Llewellyn getting after it. Brian Allen getting after it. Ethan Hurkett, Jeremiah Pittman, Y.A. Black blocking a field goal. Deontay Craig doing his thing. Man, we are so deep at defensive line, and that defensive line room deserves a ton of credit. An absolute ton of credit. Kelvin Bell is a wizard. I love what he's done with this defensive line and how he's developed everybody. We have a legitimate pass rush threat, and that is going to be a huge key. Not only for that Washington game was it a huge key, it'll be a huge key going forward. And it forced multiple turnovers from Will Rogers. Jamari Harris gets another pick. One other pick as well. I believe it was Quinn Schulte who got a pick. Great game from the Iowa defense. They were flying, making plays all over the field. And they gave up 16 points. One of those was a late touchdown. Xavier Nwankpa had a hell of a game. He played one of his best games in an Iowa uniform on Saturday. And I hope that is a lot closer to the player that he's going to be for the rest of the season, because that is what we all expected once he committed to Iowa. And so good for him, turning things around. TJ Hall coming in and looking good. I absolutely loved what TJ Hall did in coverage, bouncing back from a rough few weeks there. So overall, just a really good day. Reese Dakin, booming punts, just absolutely booming them. A 61-yard punt on the day, but his average is up. He is doing really well in his first season as a punter. We'll see how the cold hits and how that affects his game for the first time. But I have a lot more confidence in him now than I did maybe through the first 3 games or so. Drew Stevens remains good and looking like himself. So all phases really hummed on Saturday, and I think that's going to be huge for their confidence going forward. Going into this game against Michigan State, it's a night game in East Lansing, so that's a little bit of a tough environment there. I know the crowd will be all jacked up and ready for a game against Iowa. First-year head coach from Michigan State, just like it was for Washington. So Michigan State trying to turn things around after a season of maybe a little bit of turmoil last year with the Mel Tucker situation kind of blowing up in their face and having to go to an interim coach. And then bringing in Jonathan Smith from Oregon State, who I love. But things haven't clicked yet for this Michigan State program. They're 3-3 on the year. Their 3 wins are a 3-point win over Maryland on the road, a 6-point win at home over Florida Atlantic, and a dominating performance of Prairie View A&M. They have a road loss to a Boston College team who's decent, stomped at home by Ohio State, on the road at Oregon where they were manhandled. And they had a bye last week, and they had a whole bye week to prepare for Iowa. Man, I just think that the Iowa defense could feast in this game. The Michigan State offensive line pass blocking has been, well, the blocking in general for the Michigan State offensive line has been the absolute weakness of this team. So the defensive line exposed the Washington offensive line on Saturday, and they're going to have a chance to do the same thing in this game against Michigan State. Aiden Childs, I like his long-term potential. He's a captain of the team. He's going to be a good leader. He's going to be a good quarterback, but he has a lot to learn when it comes to avoiding turnovers and being more efficient. And that is going to play right into Iowa's hands this weekend. So I think this defense is going to be causing all sorts of havoc all over the field for Aiden Childs in that offense, and that it's a huge advantage for Iowa. And then Iowa has the run game to really salt this thing away. Caleb Johnson mentioned his big day against Washington. He has a big day against everybody. He is really close, everyone, to being on. He's well on pace for the single season rushing record and the single season rushing touchdown record at Iowa. Sean Green holds both of those. 1,850 yards in 2009, obviously, and 20 rushing touchdowns in 2009 as well. Caleb Johnson is at 937 rushing yards with 12 rushing touchdowns through 6 games. And Iowa is going to be leaning on him heavily for the rest of the season. He has 13 total touchdowns, 1 receiving touchdown, and just a shade under 1,000 total yards, 990 to be exact as well. So look for a heavy dose of Caleb Johnson, who, in all honesty, reminds me of a Michigan State running back from the past, a guy by the name of Le'Veon Bell. And so Michigan State fans, if you get the chance to admire Caleb Johnson in person, enjoy it, because you might be looking at a guy who's very much like a Le'Veon Bell type. Michigan State, I'm not sure what they can do to really expose Iowa at any point in this time. I think you can load up against the run and try to force Iowa to throw. But Iowa showed enough success in the passing game last weekend. I think that's going to have to be shown again. They're going to have to show the ability to make plays in the passing game to get a sizable win like they did last week against Washington on the road. This line opened at 6.5. Iowa 6.5 point favorite. It's whittled all the way down to 5 as the week has kind of gone on. Interesting that the public, or maybe some sharps, think Michigan State can cover. That's just very interesting to me. But and the over-under is 39.5. Iowa games are going over the over-under, and Iowa almost beat the over-under in the Washington game by themselves. I think this is another night where the Iowa football team goes over in the total, and maybe they get there themselves. I think they have an absolute field day with this Michigan State team. So give me Iowa to win this game, and I think it's going to be something like 38-13 Iowa. Just an absolute domination of a performance against the Michigan State Spartans on the road. And that will do it. Thank you all for listening here in our men's basketball preview. And we look forward to the Michigan State game this weekend. The Hawks bringing home another win. Hopefully this is the momentum that they need to kind of propel them forward and to win out for the rest of the season. I think 10-2 would be the best outcome, obviously, that you could hope for. And that's what we're all rooting for. I know it. I think it's a realistic chance of getting there. But you got to win this one. And I think Iowa will, and they will take care of business in this game. So thank you as always for listening. One quick note before I let you all go is we do have a live show planned on November 7th at the Front Row in Clive. So if you are in the Clive area in early November and want to come hang out with us on November 7th at the Front Row in Clive, it's going to be a good time. Drew Shipley is going to be there with me. We're going to have maybe some other guests there with us as well. We'll figure out all the details. We'll let you know more as more details pop up, but I can break that news to all of you. So really excited about it, doing a live show for the first time ever. Appreciate you all. Appreciate all of our sponsors. enjoy the game this Saturday. Enjoy every moment of being a Hawk fan going forward. As always, go Hawks.